And I'll try to say this with love, but I say it because it's how I feel. I've never met so many cowards in our black men in show business. I've never met so many black men that have no goddamn backbone. And what happens in our community, they've got us chasing the bag and not principle and not integrity. Because when all of that start hitting and all that start going on, I heard my brother with my own ears say, she's burned too many bridges, and I don't know if there's anything I can do for her. And that hurt my feelings because I'm like, brother, you never pick up the phone and say, hey, Mo, what's going on? Before you went on the air and you said to millions of listeners, she's burned too many bridges. You were a part of pushing that agenda before you even asked me what was going on. So when I got on the show, I knew I needed to have that conversation because you wasn't returning my calls. You wasn't returning my text. See, I gave you the opportunity to have a private, when people say, why didn't you talk to him privately? I gave him the opportunity to do that. My texts and my calls went unanswered and unreturned. And someone would say, well, why wouldn't you return it? If you put out there that we have this relationship and this friendship, but when it came about, oh, you're going against the powers that be, and I want the powers to be that, no, I'm not on that side. So I'm going to say what it's going to take for them to know I'm with the machine. I'm not about equality. I'm not about what's right and what's fair. So when I went on the Steve Harvey show, I knew the conversation I was going to have with my brother. I didn't know the conversation he was going to have back with me.
He said.
So, oh man, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. So, let's get to it. So, unless you've been under a rock, so Monique was, and is a comedian. At one point in the early to mid 2000s, was probably the biggest black comedian out. Other than maybe, you had Steve Harvey, you had Bernie Mac, of course, rest in peace, Dave Chappelle. But for females in particular, she was the biggest star. She had a hit TV show, she was doing films left and right. She reached her peak when she did the Tyler Perry produced Precious movie. Only got paid $50,000 for it. So that was her issue with Tyler Perry. She had issues with Lee Daniels. She also had an issue with Oprah when Monique told Oprah not to have her family on her show. This is when Oprah had her talk show. And she told Oprah, don't have my brother on there because she didn't want her personal information being put out there to the public. Oprah said she wouldn't do it. She went and did it anyway. So that's how her beef with Oprah started. So Monique does this video about 2 years ago when she's on stage doing a comedy. I think it was at the Apollo. I'm not sure. And she goes viral because she says, all of y'all could suck a dick. Yada, 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 right? And Tyler Perry and her had a conversation, and they squashed it, but her other beefs still stand. And my problem is she got blackballed. People in this business get blackballed all the time. A lot of times you see someone who's real talented, they don't just fall off. Rather you think she's funny or not, that's subjective. She was a household name comic. You don't just lose your talent overnight like this. This isn't Space Jam when the Monstars came in and snatched all the NBA players' talent. A lot of times you see people leave the business either by choice because they just decided they didn't want to be a part of it no more and all of the politics and the games, or they got forced out, they got blackballed. I mean, when's the last time you heard of Mel Gibson? Spoken Reasons was a big-time YouTube sensation on here about 10 years ago. Went to Hollywood, got that movie with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy, and then just disappeared. And he made a video talking about his disappearance and what he found out Hollywood was not what he thought it was. And he said he had too much pride and integrity to do the things they wanted him to do. You should check that out because a lot of people are misled. They think the industry is all just lights, camera, action, money, but it's a lot of shit that you got to put up with. And a lot of pills you gotta swallow, no pun intended, to make it in this business. Now, it's just like the Dave Chappelle skit. When keeping it real goes wrong. And for Monique's case, she kept it too real for these people. And it went wrong. And after she got the precious Oscar for that movie, it went downhill. She hasn't starred in the movie since. They have phased her out. And one of the unwritten rules in the Hollywood business, when someone is blackballed, In order for other people to secure their self and secure their bag, you stand as far away from them as possible and disconnect yourself from them. And that's why she didn't get a lot of support from her fellow black peers. People like Steve Harvey, Kim Coles, some more, even her Queens of Comedy peers, some more, and Adele Givens, they all gave her ass to kiss. They stayed as far away from her as possible because they didn't want to get blackballed via association, and that's what's been going on with Monique. So then she goes on Breakfast Club, and her and Charlamagne get into it. She calls him Leonard like 50 times, and she gets under his skin. But of course, Charlamagne's gonna play cool, like it didn't bother him, but it did. And then Oprah, who probably didn't even know who Charlamagne was, about a week later takes a picture with him for a photo op, so she could try to be petty and, take a stab at Monique just to be funny, But this is what they do, and this is all leading up towards the Steve Harvey interview that took place earlier this year. And I watched this on TV when it happened live. And this is about February. And they sat down, probably one of the best televised interviews of the year, other than that R. Kelly, Gayle King shenanigan shit. That was crazy. But, they were talking about the business, and she was saying, it's about integrity with me. I don't care about the money. It means nothing without integrity. And Steve was like, well, this is the money game, and this ain't the integrity game. We got to feed our families. And he was letting it be known he's with the machine. He wasn't fucking with what her message was. He tap danced and shoe shined his way to the top to get everywhere he's gotten. The Family Feud stuff, all of these shows he hosts, the commercials, everything, the radio show. And he's like, look, this is the way I feed my family. I'm not going to stop because of yada, yada, yada. And that's what the whole conversation was. Now, according to Mo, Steve actually agreed with her, but he had his producers edit out his statements about what he thought about the powers that be, so that way he could protect himself, so that he wouldn't get blackballed. Because he was already going out on a limb just having her on his show, knowing that she's one of the, she's like one of Hollywood's public enemies. So he had to make it clear, I'm not with that, so that they don't come after me. And that's just how cowardly Steve is. And that's when she goes to say, so many scary ass black men, so many scary Negroes in this business. Because you think about it, look at the people who are on top now. Are they really keeping it real? Is Terry Crews keeping it real? Is Kevin Hart keeping it real? Is Tiffany Haddish keeping it real? No, they either go along with the agendas that's planned, or they keep their fucking mouth shut. Tell me someone who's keeping it real like that, that's really popping out here via the machine. No one is. So, that's what Mo is really getting at. And then 2 months later, Universal pulled Steve's show. They pulled off his talk show. They canceled it. And then they canceled Big Little Shots and replaced him with Melissa McCarthy, I believe. And Kelly Clarkson's replacing him on that time slot on CBS. And Monique, give her credit, she wasn't childish. She could have said, hi, that's what you get, nigga. Ha ha ha. She was real classy about it and was like, hey, I wish him all the best. He's a hardworking man. Steve, you could use the rest. You get an extra nap now. But you're telling people they need to work 8 jobs and they don't need to get any sleep, and just to have, he did all of that shoe shucking and jiving and bootlicking and still got his shit pulled. And I give Monique credit for being mature and not really, she could have really took that and ran with it, but she didn't. Because like I say, Steve Harvey exposed himself for who he really is. And it's crazy that people are just now starting to see what Monique was talking about. Because people treated her like she was this old lady who was this old senile woman who lived with a bunch of cats. The way that they treated her on the Breakfast Club. You had 3 black people defending the industry against this black woman who's telling her story. And they know what it is, but this goes back to them, disconnecting themselves with people who've been blackballed. You don't want to stand too close to them because you don't want to get blackballed. So they got up there and acted stupid, like they didn't know what she was talking about, knowing damn well it was the truth. Even when she eyeballed Angela Yee was frozen. She had nothing to say because she knew it was true. And for them to do that, and she's been in the industry longer than all 3 of them. She know the game in and out. So you gonna sit here and tell her, someone who's been doing comedy since the early 90s, who's been in the business for 30 years, that she don't know what she's talking about? She's making it up? That was nonsense. I'm just glad people are starting to finally realize what Monique was saying was real. Now, as far as her boycott against Netflix, I didn't agree with that. I mean, it is what it is. I love Netflix, but As far as her being blackballed and telling the truth about that and getting these scary Negroes the fuck up out of here, I'm with that all day. I fuck with Monique big time. And people are like, well, her husband's gonna run her out. Look, Monique was already talking that shit way before Sydney came around. Her husband is not gonna be responsible for her downfall. When you've already been blackballed, what else more can they do to her? They can't do anything else. So she's doing her thing. She looks good now. She's keeping herself in shape, man. I fuck with Monique, man. And let me know what y'all think in the comment section about this whole shit with Monique and Steve Harvey, man. I'm out.